You know, I watched my dad build a business from nothing into it was a $50 million a year company, in the contract packaging world. And I learned more when every summer there would come a point where my mom had it with me. And so she'd send me to go work with my dad. And his plant was in Geneva. It was far. It was an hour. He knew all the back roads. He had that Zach Morris cell phone, in the car, with the speaker on it. That was like the highest technology there, out there. And he was just on the phone the entire way, there and back. And I mean, bending over backwards, with a smile on his face, which is a side of my dad that we didn't really get to see. But I would ask questions, and I remember, him essentially saying, if you're not willing to absolutely bend over backwards and go the extra mile and anticipate and live to serve in that way, right? Like you have absolutely no business owning a business. And, I think the combination of the emotions and the high dollar value and how much is at stake and, all of those things drew me to the business. But as far as as soon as I started to get into the industry and met other agents and got my feet wet, I realized what average was. And I realized very quickly that, not only can we be above average, but we could do things at a very exceptional level. I'd worked in private clients at Merrill Lynch, when I was in college and as an intern, and I understood, the market fundamentals and I understood the good old fashioned white glove customer service that my dad had taught me. And, I can very clearly remember the nervousness of that first deal that I ever did. For the property that was a listing that my boss at the time had. Those people were so utterly dependent upon me. That contract might as well have been in a different language, and they needed me, right? And I took such great pride, even though I was so nervous then, doing that for the first time, in my early 20s. But it was also overshadowed by the impact that I was making, and so I think once I got a taste of that. It became just a real joy to excel for people. It became a joy to run towards the stuff that other agents ran from, the hard things, the distress stuff, the situations that no one else could figure out. And I live for that stuff. I'm a guy that doesn't drink coffee. I jump out of bed every morning and I feel genuinely grateful to be alive because, not only do I have my son and people who love me, but I have people that need me. And they need me to do things that only me qualified to do in the way I do them. And, that's a damn good feeling to get up with every morning. And so, for everything I've been through from the, having the biggest boutique company and, all the changing technology and all of it, this industry is so different, even from 5 years from now, not to mention 21. But I think, passion and the ability to truly serve at an exceptionally high level are two very, very rare things in this industry, and I feel very grateful to have them, and that's really at the forefront of everything I do.
Say first year, the one thing that I wish somebody had really taught me is what level of impact systems, standards, metrics, what it truly means to run a business. If I had started off and been able to build a foundation then off of the business knowledge that I have now, I truly think it would have been a very, very different experience. It's one of those you don't know what you don't know situations, and I spent years operating without any type of metrics, North Star, anything of that. Well, North Star clients, obviously, but business-wise, no North Star. And even now, 8 years in my career, going through and doing that in a retroactive manner and trying to balance the business that you have now versus what you need to be doing to push to the next level makes it incredibly, incredibly challenging. And I think that that's Also a big contributing factor to the reason why a lot of agents kind of plateau somewhere. Even like very good producers and consistent, they generally, it seems like, kind of plateau at around 15-20 million dollars a year, and it gets a heck of a lot harder to push beyond that if you're not really, really digging into these things.
I think the thing that makes me laugh the most, right, and I'm guilty of it. You get a bunch of bright-eyed, bushy-tailed agents that enter the industry every year. You got a guy in Gary Keller who in the '80s spent $10 million plus, right, to not just write down his cute little system for selling real estate, right, but to go and do the actual work and then pull the data and the research and interview the right people. Right? $10 million is worth what today? 50 million bucks. Okay, $50 million on research to write a book that he certainly didn't get rich off of. And the book, Millionaire Real Estate Agent, might as well be called like, "Hey idiot, follow this exactly and do not deviate from it, and you will actually get what you want." And the problem is, every one of us having zero experience at that time, we read the book, and then we all decide that somehow in our infinite grace and wisdom that we immediately we can improve upon Gary's model. Gary doesn't understand me personally, right? Well, I'm different, I'm unique, and I'm special, right? And that mindset is the biggest roadblock, right? The absolute biggest roadblock, because when you start your career out, right, taking the definitive data set and blueprint for doing something at an efficient, profitable level from day one, with hierarchy, a systematic approach that's replicable, with standards that you can hold people accountable to, with the frickin' percentages and the numbers and all of it laid out. And we ignore it, right? Because we all decide that we have to go on this journey. Some of us need to be punched in the nose harder than others, but to echo Patrick's sentiments, everything that most of us do, again, myself included, is retrofitting, right? And as we've all seen in buildings, when they want to put central air into a concrete building from the 70s in the Gold Coast, that's a bitch. That's hard, right? Like it would have been a hell of a lot easier if they'd done that up front, right? And they made the plan and.
Or super expensive.
Well, right, but I mean, yeah, I mean, the scaling of the business is extraordinarily difficult. Managing the people is very difficult. Holding everything accountable is very difficult. Knowing where to put your time is very difficult. But there's a roadmap, and we're all like salmon trying to like swim upstream to spawn, and there just comes a point where you finally get to that like, pinnacle moment where you're just like, I don't give a shit about ego. I don't give a shit about whose name's on the sign or what color the logo is or whatever it is. Like, I would want to run an efficient business, and I certainly, right, have better things to do with my life than to work all day. So I want to get in here. I want to have an efficient day. I want to do everything I need to do. I want to absolutely blow people out of the water with our service and results, and I want to move on with my life because that's the whole point of it. And so, for me, same as Patrick. Like, I just feel like such a dumbass. I don't know what else to say because it was all right there, and I had to go get punched in the nose so many times. And the sad truth is, for the volume I've done, I mean, well over $1 billion, I could have been retired twice by now at 44 years old, and yet here I sit. And so let it be a cautionary tale that sometimes humble yourself down, realize that you're not that special, right? Out of an entire transaction, probably 5% of it is actually supposed to have your direct input. The rest of it's supposed to be managed by people that are smarter and better equipped to do all those things in a way that you possibly couldn't. And your job is to hold them accountable to it, right? Your job is to come in and do those big, big things. And the faster you come to that hallelujah moment, the faster that you're going to see your business excel. And it's just as simple as that.
Get away.
I hate that on my own, but like, what has absolutely floored me, right? And again, 44, finally figured out enough therapy and everything else, put the damn ego aside, right? And be honest, the amount of people in this industry that have average intelligence at best, average advantages at best, right? They didn't grow up, in an area where, kids were flying on private jets to go on vacation, right, for spring break. And you sit there and you're like, how the hell do they do this? Like, how is this person doing this kind of volume, right? They've got the personality of a wet blanket. Like, how is it they don't know that much about the industry? They're not some financial numbers expert, right? What is it? And this is one of those industries where, right, you don't have to be any of those things, right? It helps, right? It certainly, right, shortens the curve on a lot of things. But if you come every day and you systematically, consistently approach this business and do the things you're supposed to do in the order you're supposed to do them with the attention to detail that you're supposed to, what you can achieve on a base built of very much less than exceptional, right? You can absolutely crush it. And I think like those are the people that humble me, because I realize that I have gifts that they just don't have that help me excel in this business, but they wipe the floor with me when it comes to consistency and efficiency. And I think those are the people that all of us need to look at more and that we need to emulate more, because, right, rather than being jealous of it or being whatever, the opportunity is, right, like the small, tiny little things done consistently the same way with the same accountability over the long haul are guaranteed, right, to help you achieve victory. And, I have no problem telling new agents in the business, right, it's like, well, what if I don't make it? It has nothing to do with it, right? If you do this for long enough, right, you will achieve the maximum amount of success that you're going to achieve for your given, right, skill set, right, education, knowledge, network, all of it. And people just don't want to do that, or they're like me and they're neurodivergent and ADD as hell, and they struggle with that, right? But I think that is the absolute biggest single defining factor in success. And I thought before I met all the people at the top and became one of them, they were going to be these like rocket scientists who knew the price per square foot in every, county in Illinois off the top of their head. And, there's, pulling spreadsheet data that was 50,000, rows and doing this hyper analysis. They're not. They just do the same thing consistently every day, right? And they hold themselves accountable to it. And that is essentially the dirty little secret to be completely bulletproof. But nobody wants to do it, or nobody can get themselves to do it, and that's why it's so much harder than it looks.
Biggest surprise for me is probably the number of people who are not only okay with mediocrity in the service that they're provided, but will also continue to champion those people. Scott was kind of alluding to it a moment ago with all these huge teams or names that are in our industry, and then you like get into a deal with them finally, and you're like, man, this is an absolute hot mess. Like, how is anybody having a good experience here working with you, let alone you're the person who like dominates this one area and continues to get referrals and continues to win business. So it kind of piggybacks off what you're saying with like, you don't need to be the smartest person, you just need to be consistent and do all of this. But it also, especially for like newer agents, I think don't let it discourage you. Sometimes it's just the roll of the dice, and it's nothing that you're doing wrong. You could be doing a fantastic job. Just continue to do what you're doing, be good, like provide exceptional service, but don't wait for yourself. Don't expect that there's going to all of a sudden be some magic bullet that's going to come about. Especially with all of our, like you said, with all the consolidation stuff that's going on right now, it's like absolutely flabbergasting to me. You look at Redfin, which is very much a household name, whether people look at it as a search engine or as a brokerage. End of the day, like their brokerage services, in my opinion, are not the best model. You're not getting a very, very concise, accurate experience. And then Rocket purchasing them. Okay, well, now you have kind of the same thing in the mortgage company, where you don't have somebody who's a local expert, more than likely. They don't understand the nuance of your market. Redfin, if you're going out if you're a buyer with them, you're probably going out with a different agent every single time. And this is supposed to be the biggest transaction of your life. That's like going and like hiring your wedding caterer and voluntarily choosing Pizza Hut, you know? So I don't know. The biggest surprise to me is how little people put into actually searching for their agent and like caring about that and listening to what they have to say. And it's really just defaulting to convenience over and over and over and over again. And
I mean,
very, very,
I'll
very
add one more
discouraging.
thing, right? Like, it used to be low 70s, but now I've such a data recently. It's over 80%. Over 80% of people hire the first realtor that comes in front of their face, right, when they're ready to make that decision. And and again, just to elaborate, like, borrowing money is inherently, right, riskier than having it, than inheriting it, right, than having it in your bank account. Okay, you're creating a significant debt, right? And I say this, people, I did the research on Perplexity. People will spend 3 minutes on average squeezing avocados at the grocery store. Okay, they spend not a moment, okay, to pick a broker. And the flip side of that is, and I say this to people where it's like, because they're like, well, I already talked to someone. It's like, congratulations. Like, do you want quality representation, or did you want the ultimate convenience of only having to spend 10 seconds on it? I'll say this, and what's crazy is, if you inherited $400,000 right now, which is what you're proposing to spend on a home, okay, because you have no clue, right, about how to manage a financial portfolio for retirement, right? You would go to Merrill Lynch and Smith, right? Smith Barney. You would go to all the different, right, the financial houses. You would interview. You would vet. You'd look up their criminal record. You'd look with the SEC and see if they've ever been, had a violation, right? For the same $400,000. But then you're going to turn around and get pressured into spending that money, which is more money than you've ever even seen in a room, right? Much less had of your own. Okay, and you're going to get pressured by your aunt to use your nephew's best friend, who just got a license in Joliet and who sold one home there for $75,000, right? And they're going to come downtown and somehow they're going to do a good job for you. And like, that is the part, right? It's both terrifying, but it's all like I've done leads before. My business has been literally 100% referral, and we're building out a lot of this stuff, and I would say in less than 20% of the cases are people even interviewing more than one broker. I walk out with 100% commitment to getting people before I even have the actual intake meeting with them or go to their home for a listing. And so it's like, just goes back to what I said earlier with, this is a business where you can make more money being average and consistent than I almost really any other industry I know, especially the dollars per hour earning potential. And so it's like that knowledge, right? Knowing that, that person's going to turn down $1 billion producer for someone who's, a 26-year-old kid who was selling medical supplies, right? 3 months ago.
We're being generous now.
Okay. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. Okay. And I think like that is the piece where if you go back and read The Millionaire Real Estate Agent with that in mind, and then it all becomes real simple.
Yeah.
Well, it's an echo chamber. Like,
Absolutely insane.
everyone thinks that they're a genius and that they have the best people for everything, and they have no idea. Like, there's so many times where people are like, "Oh, I'm relieved, when I got your buyer agency agreement. Why? Well, you're charging the same thing as like the other person we talked to, and it doesn't even feel like you should have the same for what you do, and but that conversion, I mean, agents are relying on complacency. They're relying on fatigue, and and if you're new, I hate to say it, but like those are two of the best weapons and leverage that you have in your tool belt. That's how you get a listing over Matt Laracy, who does $400 million a year, right? Why? Because you called at the right time and he called 4 minutes later. And, again, reassuring and terrifying, but as true as it gets.
Consolidation. I mean, 110% consolidation. It's, it's happening across the board in multiple different industries, but at the same time, we are at this place where these gigantic corporations have the ability to just swing their purse strings around and Like I said, Rocket's buying Redfin, Compass is buying at properties and the Anywhere brands, and there's nothing stepping in to really give any checks and balances, which is to me the scariest part. The amount of information that they have on all these consumers, the reach that they have with even like the little subsidiary companies that they own, like Zillow owning Follow Up Boss now. Okay, well, cool. Now you can just peek behind the veil and see everybody that's in my database. It's really, really alarming to me that there's no regulation around this, because there's so many acts that are supposed to protect the consumer and give them a shot and make sure that we don't end up in these monopolies. And not only are they using them to wield power and take a stranglehold in the industry, but they're also now going to have the ability to diminish quality. It's with everything that scales, right? Trying to think of a specific company right now, but somebody that started off as, oh, this is quality, I guess Audi. Let's just use Audi as a brand here. Like, look at an interior of an Audi 5-7 years ago versus something now, where it was like, milled aluminum and leather everywhere. Now it's the little squidgy plastic that's on the dash or on the on the doors, and all the buttons are plastic now, or like that glossy piano black nonsense. The buttons, you don't have physical buttons anymore. You have like little haptic touchpads that, God knows how long those are going to last for. But it's dilution, it's the dilution of it. It's the lack of the consumer's best interest. I'm not going to name names here, but there's a very specific CEO of a certain real estate company that their whole thing was like, I want to make it better for agents. And now you look at their actions and like, how in God's name do you think that this is in the best interest of an agent? It's not. It's not in the best interest of like, they're pushing a narrative on the consumer that is, oh, we want to keep this gated in here because that's going to be the best thing for you. Any person that understands business remotely knows that if you want to sell something, you're going to put it out in front of as many people as possible, unless there is like a insanely specific scenario that you need. And that is how you're going to get the best price. That's how you're going to get the best price.
It goes beyond that though, right? Like here's the grift, right? There's no other professional service industry where we just stood up and we were like, take it all, take the whole thing. Here it is, take it all, right? Like, where do you see like lawyers or insurance people, right? Or any high-end professional financial advisors? Who owns their industry and those websites and everything else? Oh, they do. But apparently, you know what I mean? Like, it was too hard to understand tech and to see that this, newfangled internet thing that came about, right, in the beginning was going to be a hit and stick around. And we gave it all away, right? And the grift is like, it's all bullshit, right? Yes, he comes on, Mr. Compass comes on, and they go back and forth, and Emred cut off and everything else. But that's the 3-card money game, right? You're watching the wrong cup, okay? The reality is, this industry is becoming, whether people like it or not, it's becoming what every other financial professional service industry is, right? There's a difference between Scottrade and, my guy at Merrill Lynch who's, has $6 billion under management and is top 25 in the country every year. It's not comparable, right? Where do these companies make their money, right? Keller and Compass and all of them. You make your money from the people in the middle. Right? You got the people at the top, you got to kiss their ass, you got to give them, Cubs tickets and whatever the hell else you got to do, right? And ridiculous splits, and, every time they bitch and moan, you got to do something for them, and you got to pay for their marketing and whatever. You don't make any money off those people. You make the money off the average people, right? Because those are the people that they make $100,000 a year, they pay, and they think they're getting, on this split, they end up paying you $30,000, and that's where you're making your money. And the problem is, what these companies in this industry that are now dominating, right? The big box companies, they're well aware of where their meal tickets are, okay? But the problem is because also, right, concurrently with that, we've given away, right? I remember back in the day when Zillow, I had half of River North for $500 a month for the buyer traffic. I remember the last year that Zillow gave your listings leads to you without having to pay for them. I had something like 4,300 something leads. 4,300 leads from Zillow at an average of $300 something thousand a piece. That's $120 million more, okay? That's what's being taken away, okay? That's what's being taken away. And the reality is, right, that all of these big companies, okay, no offense to any of them, okay? If I didn't think Keller was an absolute standout in the whole scene, but it is all the same at the end of the day, right? They're gonna do what protects, right, their money, okay? And so we're trying to force this middle ground, and just like with the economy and everything else, right, it all seems to be in unison, right? The divide is growing. There is no middle class anymore, right? So what's happening? Well, these companies have to figure out how can we justify, right, getting a standard, typical commission that agents are used to getting. How can we continue to help them earn that, even though we know they suck, right? Because we don't want to be Redfin. We don't want to come in and have to drop our pants and immediately, go discount, right? But then we also know that not more than 1% of the people that are at this company are absolutely high level, invaluable, right? Consultants people look at no differently than they have lifelong relationships with their pediatrician, their attorney, their accountant, their financial advisor, and those people are able to elevate themselves to that same thing, right? That same level, right? That's those of us at the top. But everyone else in the middle, right? Well, they've got to make a choice. They don't have the intelligence, they don't have the business sense, they don't have the support or the knowledge or the resources or the money to scale and run the business. But they also don't want to be, right? They don't want to be discount brokers. And so it's like everyone's trying to figure out where they're going to carve it out, but it's like, right? Like it's the sustainability of mediocrity, all right? Because if it was just, if the top 5% picked up even more market share, right? And to an even larger degree, right? Well, those people are at the top. When you have $100 million being done by 10 people, the brokerage makes more than if it's one team doing $100 million, exponentially, right? And so that's the issue, right? And so it's like that's what Rifkin, whatever his name is. That's what all these guys and everyone is fighting for, right? Like they want the right to keep this job so that we still have to deal with Phil Dunphy on Modern Family and Cookie Kwan on the West Side on Simpsons, right? Why? Because people think that we're maybe one step above used car salesmen, and we've also allowed that shit too. Okay.
But if you don't think that this is just phase one, I would be astounded.
No, the same companies will come out and they'll have an AI, and you'll pay 1%.
It's not even going to be that. So this is phase one. So we're consolidation right now, right? Okay. Well, what do you think Compass is going to do? Compass and its subsidiary brands. What do you think that they're going to do once everything folds up and okay, they have the domination of the market share now. They're going to start trying to pay people salary, similar to what they do at Redfin. And then they're going to still take the XYZ% off the sale. And they're going to say, hey, you guys make this. That's the next step for sure. You establish a dominance. Nobody else has even an absolute option. And if we want to continuing to work in this industry, well, guess what? Here's your option. This is what you can make.
But what's crazy is like, I in talking to agents, right? And my sister ends up talking to more agents. She's the best recruiter, certainly of the two of us, right? But in getting feedback and what do you like about, Compass? What do you like about, this high tech, EXP, whatever? Oh, like basically, I just put the address in, and if I go to a listing presentation, it tells me like what it's worth, and it tells me it's like that's what you need help with, like. That would be like going to Merrill Lynch and sitting down with a top financial advisor, and he's like, well, let me see what Scott Trade says you do with my money, right? And so it's like,
or the S&P returned 7% last year.
But
expect 7%.
But it's the same way that the consumer is just like, well, like I found the home myself, and I found the whatever, like. it's getting harder and harder to demonstrate value. And there's also the simple idea that, not every consumer is sophisticated enough to be able to really understand the math and let it play out, right? Like, I've had a lot of people where it's like, oh, God, you're such a superior agent. We know you'll sell for more, but we just, we know that you're worth, 5% and an average agent's worth 2%, and we double our money. It's a windfall off of having you involved, whatever it is. But I just can't help myself. I just can't help myself. I could save a point up front.
Right, well,
and you're like, well, let's run around a negotiation. They're like, I know. I'm an idiot, but I can't help myself, right? And it's like, and that,
that goes back to the point that you were making earlier, though, where, one will pick people immediately. 2, what you just said about like, oh, well, I found the house myself. Like, sure, whatever, you found the house yourself. Who gives a crap? That's the easy job. I always tell clients, like, hey, after we do all this, then we can go out and go shopping. That's the fun part, right? Like, everybody loves to go shopping. There's no effort in that. But when you get inside the home, do they know what they're looking for? Do they know how to tell you if there's water damage? Do they know how to assess the building? Like, and the issue that we're coming up against is like, you can't even get these people to have these conversations anymore and like recognize what, like, they don't know what they don't know. And like, that's the insane thing.
I've had, like, I think the like, honestly, and I felt bad because I know this person and I do respect them, but I don't remember the last time I laughed as hard from something that happened in this industry. This was probably like 2 or 3 years ago. I got a call from a then managing broker of a coal banker, and essentially the call was to let me know that he thought it was fair that the buyer who had fired his agent, they'd put in 4 or 5 offers, weren't close on any of them. Buyers felt like they were running around like chicken with their head cut off. Ran into one of my friends at a social event. They were like, literally like called me on speakerphone, was like, Scott, help, and they fired their agent. And we went and saw 3 places, immediately got them under contract on one. I think it was actually Tommy, who was the listing agent, which it was the perfect example of what I said to them. Like, these deals, the first thing that we look at as agents is we look at who the other agent is, right? Because if I know the lender and the agent, then the rest of it, I know we can work out, right? And essentially, because I was really good at my job and did all the things that I said I'd do, and I brought value, he wanted me to accept that it was, how the market is, and like, you should give a 25% referral fee because my agent, they worked so hard and they basically set the table for you. And I'm like, no. I'm like, drop dead, first of all. But second of all, what you didn't help me. You made it harder.
Yeah.
You made this person more skeptical, less trusting, right? Have a lower opinion of the professionalism of our industry, okay? And you allowed that mediocrity to live inside your business, right? And that is the fundamental, right? The truth of it, right? Is that, like, can you imagine in any other industry? Another attorney calling, yeah, we were incompetent, and then they didn't hire us. Can we get some money from that, right? It's like, I just thought it was the most pathetic thing ever. I mean, literally, and I said so, and it was like, why are you teaching these agents that this is okay, right? Like, at the end of the day, if you can't come up with a value proposition, if you can't come up with a reason why your offer, is the best, you can't get things done consistently, hey, I don't want to sit at a desk from 9 to 5 either and just make a salary, right? I'd rather jump off a bridge. But like, we're all not cut out for this. You know what I mean? And it's like, either like you get it and you fucking bring it, or you don't, right? Because this is a seller's market and it's really challenging for buyers. But guess what? In 5 years, it's gonna be a buyer's market again. And you know what? And we're gonna bitch and moan and have this, oh my God, it's not fair. It's never fair, right? It's never fair. And so it's like, I don't know. It's such a weird industry where it's like, you can make so much money. The public has such a negative connotation. The licensing bodies make it, so all you have to do is have a pulse to get a license. You know what I mean? And it's like, go past the Series 66. Okay? Go past those SEC exams. Those are hard as hell. okay? And you have to be pretty damn smart, right, on a basic level. So it's like, our industry, we screwed ourselves, and we continue to do it. Why do we can all just get together and decide that Zillow's done in Chicago? We can all turn off the feed. I'm but have no choice but to listen to us. Like, we don't have to have our integrity and right and our business models and everything cut to pieces and argued about by some guy whose biggest fear is whether he gets to cash in another $20 million worth of his stock this quarter, right? But he cares about us, right? Yeah. And we are this. There's going to be nothing less of this industry at some point soon. We're going to have very high-end consultants that do this at an extraordinarily high and elevated level, and you're going to have the rest of the people, right, arguing about how much bullshit slop that they could serve you up for a heavily discounted rate, right? And at a certain point, you go to Joe's rather than McDonald's if you want a piece of fish.